Welcome to the Party Invite Show, number 82. We just got the two of us holding it down tonight. There we go. It's already spooky because my hands are disappearing into the background of this video filter. My name is Tegan. That right there is Vilos.
That's me.
And we are two of the four members of Party Invite. Party Invite is a gaming community designed to bring people together over their love of video games and the ability to play them together in a positive, constructive environment. So every week we bring you a show in two parts. We've got the podcast, which usually talks about what we've been playing, and today we've got a party topic for you. We haven't had one of those in several weeks. And the second half of the show is a game stream. So it's the beginning of September, which means it's Halloween, pretty much. It's spooky season. So there are so many horror games out there. There's just so much horror to consume these days. It's the one holiday that I'm happy to see extended across multiple months. So we're gonna get excited about that by looking at a bunch of games, both single player and multiplayer. Showing you some trailers, just talking about why you might like this game because it's related to this game. But we'll get to that after we talk about what we've been playing. So let's start there. You know what? I just played Spelunky. We'll do me second because everybody's heard Spelunky already. Let's start with something new. Vilos, let's talk about Subliminal.
Yeah, Subliminal. I have kind of been on an escape game kick after playing Escape Academy the last 3 weeks of the pod, and so I've been wanting to play Subliminal for a long time. It's a very interesting game that's very much Portal meets escape rooms,
Mm-hmm.
and if that floats your boat, then yeah. And coincidentally, of course, it's on Game Pass, and it's available via the cloud on Game Pass. It's not it's not a game that takes a whole lot of space, but I was like, why the hell not? And on the Series S, it plays beautifully via the cloud. I got to play a solid hour and a half or so. Unfortunately, I did fall asleep like in the middle of it because that's what I do. But this game is fantastic. It's just as cryptic as you might remember your first playthrough of Portal. You have this disembodied voice telling you things about your surroundings. The whole point is that you are in a dreamscape. You don't know why exactly, but you're being tested in some way. You're being experimented on in some way that you're going to have to reveal. And the cool thing that you're seeing in this trailer is that because it's a dreamscape, a lot of the goals is that you have to open up a door, and usually that's by pressing a pressure tile, and you are literally given like a very tiny object like a pawn, and it's up to you to figure out how to get that door open. And most of the time it's actually like looking in a corner or looking at towards like this light source in the ceiling that makes the pawn look, yeah, at your perspective, it makes the pawn look bigger. And then if you press you press B to pick it up, and then you press like the trigger or something to drop that item, it drops it as that larger version of it,
Mm-hmm.
which is hard to explain it. But like you're
But
seeing
it's
it in the
very
trailer.
trippy. I mean,
Yeah, it's so
in real
trippy.
life, when something is closer to you, it's bigger because it takes up more of your
Hmm.
frame of view. This just makes that literal, where it says, "Oh,
Yeah,
it looks bigger. It is bigger."
yeah. And there's different ways to figure those puzzles out. I didn't get through a ton of the puzzles, but like you're saying there's a couple optical illusions that are in there. There are mirrors that you have to take advantage of. Uh, my personal favorite so far was the walls were slightly warped, and you notice that a couple of them you can see a little crack and you can see behind them. And so you go over to the crack and you see this this piece of a cheese wheel just sitting by a door just beyond the wall, and you're like, I think I need that. So you grab the cheese and you expand it and expand it until it's like a 15 by 10 chunk of cheese, and you drop it against this wall, and it pushes the wall down, and you actually have your escape route. It's a really cool game. it's a very short game. It's somewhere around 4 or 5 hours,
Hmm.
uh, and I do look forward to completing that this week. Hopefully, we'll have a little bit more to say about the ending because I'm sure it's going to be some twisty stuff like Portal was.
No doubt.
Uh, but it's super fun, very inventive, and I believe it's pretty much on every system now. It first caught my interest because it was one of the super rare games, limited physical editions, and I think there's still copies of that floating around. So um, it's a very intriguing title, and so far it's very well made. I can't wait to finish it. Um, it's just one of those things that's a perfect bite size experience, and the fact that you can play it on cloud, super easy. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's definitely worth a play.
Yeah, fun like mind bending elements to it. I mean, just that core mechanic. Even in the trailer, I mean, they show it in so many interesting ways where you've. I think the game even says to you at one point you got to think outside the box. Maybe I'm making that up, but I remember watching Stream Noodles play this shortly after he had played um, the Stanley Parable, because they both have this irreverent sense of humor in the way that the environment tells the story, right? Because just like you said, that cheese block knocks down the wall. It's built around those moments where you're like, wait, what? Like all of these, just like, oh, this is possible. This is crazy. Lots of that, and I think the fact that it's so short is a good thing. Um, Keeps it from wearing out its welcome and all that. But that's exciting. So how did you play that? You played it on uh
I played it on my Series S, but via the cloud.
nice.
Yeah, because Game Pass Ultimate gives you that lovely service. And yeah, it's so funny. Like, there's a whole lot of signs in the place that they put up, and one of the signs, it's very particular. I wish I screenshotted it because it was so funny. The walls are like these matrix, like the silver matrix stuff, the mirror. Whenever Neo touches it,
Oh right.
um, there are doorways. All the doorways kind of look like that, except a little more distorted. And if you try to take an object with you through the doorway, it just stops the object at the door and it falls. And there's like warning signs. It's like, uh, do not attempt to take an object with you through the door. Anyone found with an object on the other side of this door will be penalized or whatever. And then it's like, all objects that get past this door will do this and this. And it's like all these warnings that are like, they're completely nonsense warnings that are just like redundant, and it's like totally corporate bullshit that you would see anywhere.
Hmm.
And like one of the examples was that you're actually supposed to put a block over here in view of this one two-way window or two-way mirror, however you want to call it. You go through the door, and then because of the way the game works, you're able to still see the block uh, on the other side of the door, and you can still grab it and do things with it. It's just wild, the things you can manipulate in this game. I really can't wait to finish it.
Excellent. Well, that's Superliminal. That's a game I've had on my list for a long time. I should move it up, especially since it is so short. Do you know who made that game?
I do not remember, but I'm pretty sure they have done a couple other things that are pretty well known.
Let's see. Developer
Pillow
Yeah,
Castle.
Pillow Castle Games.
That's funny.
Interesting. Well, cool. Go check that out. I mean, that game. These listings all look like $10 ish. Uh, if I'm seeing that correctly. So nice indie game. I mean, I'm sure you can catch it on sale sometime, but that would absolutely be worth 10 to 15 bucks.
Oh yeah,
100%.
and I'm sure it would play well on Switch too.
Yeah. Well, wonderful. So the I'll skip over to mine real quick. The only game I really played. I mean, I've played my usual stuff. But my update, of course, is from Spelunky. So let's give a little chat about the success and failures we had this week. I went into the stream feeling real hot, right? I was like, we've only got one challenge, and it's not even going to be that hard. Uh, the game wants you to think it's that hard. You've got to take the golden key from the cave area at the beginning. So the second like screen that you go on. So world like 1-2. That's where you find the key, and normally you can turn that key in to open the chest, which does other things later in the game. It either helps you get more gold or it helps you unlock some of the like hidden-ish quest lines. But I didn't do any of those things. It wants you to take the golden key all the way through a ton of levels to give to the woman who makes the shortcuts. So I think by the end of it, let's see, this says 4-2. So essentially through 16 levels, you have to carry this key. The thing that makes that so difficult is if the key is in your hands, you can't, you can only hold one thing in your hands at a time. So you can't be carrying a weapon and the key at the same time. So you've got to make a lot of decisions on what you do and don't want to do. For example, I kept upsetting the shopkeeper, which, no big deal. Killing the shopkeeper gets you a bunch of good stuff in there in the shop, but it means that at the end of every single level, there's a shopkeeper with a shotgun waiting to kill you. Well, when you can carry a shotgun with you between levels, you're always prepared. But when you have that dang key in your hand, you can't bring the shotgun with you. So every time you get to a new level, you're essentially empty-handed. So that's why it's such a challenge, is, how far can you get without having anything useful in your hands most of this time. So I was very cocky when we started. And let me tell you, I was not cocky by the end of that stream. I probably played for an hour and a half, and I never once even got to Olmec, the boss that we fought so many times last time. It was a combination of, foolish judgment calls, but a lot of bad luck. Just like a lot of really small chance things happening. Like, when you break open a pot, there's a chance that there will be several types of gold, or a spider, or a snake. Or there might be a bomb in it, if it's a chest. There might be a scorpion that pops out, or a cobra, which will both poison you. Those are both tremendously dangerous. There's a very low chance that that'll happen. But stuff like that kept happening, where I was just like, what are the odds that these specific things would happen? Just back to back to back the whole stream. And, just like in any game, the more tilted you get, you don't get any better, So at one point, I started to actually get mad. And I was like, okay, I need to stop fooling around. Well, actually, no, I took a few runs to only fool around, because I was like, I'm taking this too seriously. I just need to have fun. So I did. We did have a lot of fun. And I kind of blew off some steam there. But then we came back. We finally gave the golden key this challenge, which you're seeing in the video here. This is the one where we completed it. And we did it. So by the end of the stream, we completed our one and only goal. It just ended up being much more difficult. Not even for challenge reasons, but just because of all these combinations of bad luck and me like trying to push my luck when I probably shouldn't have. But overall, that's what Spunky's about. It's never knowing what you're going to expect. You never know what enemies or layout or whatever that you might see. So that was a really good time. So successfully completing that meant we unlocked the final shortcut. So there are no more. It means we now have access to the ice area, the ice cave, which is interesting because there's only one ice cave. It's not multiple ice caves like everywhere else. It's just one big, very dangerous ice cave. And then after that, you get to the alien spaceship level, which it's called Neo Babylon. I've only gotten there like 4 times ever across all the time that I've played Spelunky. And here you go. This is me being very excited, turning this thing in. But now I can get practice in the alien area. So this is one step closer to us actually beating this game, because if I can get good practice in this area, I can actually win, So we will beat this game in 2022, Vilos. We will. I can feel it in my bones. I'm confident we can. At this point, I'm just having so much fun fooling around with different rule sets and stuff, which is how we started off the stream. I was like, let's be crazy. You know what? Let's do the challenge and be crazy at the same time. Terrible mistake. Terrible. because I just wasn't taking into account how full my hands were, literally and figuratively. But
I just think you're like one of the luckiest guys in real life and the unluckiest guy in games. I feel like that's just how it works.
you know, I'll take it. I'll take it. Makes for exciting moments, and it does make the streams a lot of fun on their own, because that pain is suddenly excitement that we can all enjoy. So yep, Spelunky's going pretty well. Well, that most of that run was me doing very badly, but I'm happy I did it, and we'll probably play some more Spelunky briefly this weekend. But yeah, we're totally gonna beat this game this year. Uh, Even with all the other stuff that's coming out, we've got God of War on the way. Um, Today we were talking. I asked the community um, about games, spooky games that are on their radar, right? And Russ had said, it's a shame uh, that what is it? Callisto Protocol isn't out in October. It's out in December, so they just barely missed the window of spooky season. Um, but yeah, these AAA's are all coming out, and I want to be able to play those. And the only way that's going to happen is if I can, for sure, beat Spelunky. I'd like to beat Prey, but I just need to know that my computer's not going to crash when it happens, um, which is complicated. Streamer problems. Like the game runs fine, but when I try to combine it with streaming, it's a whole can of worms. But anyway, we'll keep this up, and these Splunky streams are some of the most fun that I have just in single player gaming right now. Because as you guys know, I spend so much of my time playing multiplayer. So this is actually one of the only games single player that I've been playing. So yeah, expect more of that. We'll hear an update next week. Hopefully, I will have made some more progress on the spaceship level, because I think the end of the game is after the spaceship level. Like I think the final area is there. So what'll probably happen is I'll keep playing through the spaceship area until I can reliably get through it. Um, the thing with the shortcuts, which I like as a mechanic of this game, is that yeah, you can skip ahead, but you don't have all the supplies and stuff that you would normally get when you start from the beginning. You don't have tons of ropes and health and spike boots and blah blah blah. So yeah, it's possible to keep progressing once you do a shortcut, but you're basically starting on a harder difficulty with fewer resources. So yeah, we'll practice that area and then hopefully see the final boss and then do a real run from the very beginning of the game and play it all the way through. So sweet. Yeah, so expect more Spelunky next week, but that's it from me, at least for now. Again, we will at the end of the game stream, or at the game stream at the end of the show, I'll be playing with Deadpool and Odysseus, and so I will talk about that next week. We did play Phasmo, but what I discovered is we've played so much Phasmo that it's hard for me to get scared specifically by that game now, because we've just seen it all. Like, there's nothing that can happen that we haven't already seen. So that's part of the reason I was excited for this party topic, is it gives me an opportunity to play more single player and multiplayer games, since pretty much all I do these days is just play with the squad in Discord. So
Did the developer say that he was done updating Phasmo? Like, or is it?
uh
Because I don't even remember if it finished early access or not.
well, I know it's not done being updated. There's actually, let me check my notes here. Because we'll talk about Phasmo again when we formally get into the party topic. On the 27th of September, so just 2 weeks from now, there's another big update that's coming out that has a new map, new custom difficulty modifiers. So now you cannot customize any difficulty at all. You can't customize how often the ghost shows up, how much sanity you lose in the dark, stuff like that. And the video that I'll end up playing later shows a very fast scroll version of all of those things. So that could be fun for us, because if we can design a custom game type then I can easily see going back into it with a fresh mind. We're also going to mention Among Us in here too, but uh, Among Us was a lot more refreshing after they came up with a big update where you had roles, which were originally introduced as mods to the game that you had to download. But those cause all sorts of problems. I mean, we tried playing those on stream and it was just a joke. But Among Us, Innersloth actually released those formally, and when they did that, they also released more customization for game lobbies. And so we were able to come up with these wacky game modes that were they were nothing like the standard game mode. Um, the Tokyo Drift one where everybody had their speed turned up very, 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 very high. The Whack-a-Mole one where instead of only the imposter being able to teleport around the map through the vents, everyone could teleport through the vents, but everyone's move speed, they ran super, super slow. Um, so it really became a game of jumping in the vents constantly instead of like actually walking around the map. But I anticipate something like that happening with Phasmo. So, like I said, that's in a couple weeks. We'll see that update. But I mean, the game is coming out with plenty of new updates. We've got a couple people in our community who have shown interest in playing, or people who just picked up the game this week, actually. Uh, I think there's going to be a game tomorrow, actually, if anybody's interested in joining up in that. Our Discord is always a place for friendly faces. So if you can hear my voice, just understand that there's a place on the internet where you can play with people who to you might be strangers, but I promise they're good people. You don't have to roll the dice to wonder if you're going to have a good game or not. In fact, let me just say, we really do, we really strive to create this positive environment, right, Vilos, where we want people to be able to show up and not have to worry about bullshit. You know, we don't want we don't want a woman logging on and feeling like she's targeted because she's a woman, because that happens all the time.
Yeah.
You don't want to jump into a lobby that's all about co-op and maybe like the kind of game with loosey goosey rules like Phasmo, uh, where you play with a random lobby and people are sabotaging you, or they don't use voice chat when you wish they would. It's really tough playing online, playing multiplayer co-op games with with strangers. So we really try hard to make sure that our community is a place that is free of that. So if that's something you are interested in, come check that out. But yeah, people are still playing Phasmo because they do keep updating it, and there's plenty of game there to enjoy. I just think its time has passed for me, but I'm totally excited to go check out these new games, especially since so many of them are like $5. So many of these spooky games are $5 or $10, so it's a really low barrier to entry to giving those a try. So anyway, that's enough for me because I'll talk about these other games. I'll give you specific examples later. But Vilas, do you want to talk about that play test?
Yeah, I technically am not supposed to say where it, or what game it is. So I did play an hour's worth of a playtest of a game that happens to have a whole lot of puzzles in it. It was an hour-long playtest that I really enjoyed, and I will definitely be talking about it as soon as humanly possible. But one of the games that we have recently played on stream has some DLC that's on the way, and I might even drop it into the Discord later that they are still looking for more playtesters for the next couple months. So if you are interested in getting into a game they're currently testing some DLC for, again, a game with a lot of puzzles in it. If that's something that might interest you, let me know, and I'll definitely drop that link in the Discord soon. Because they've got, it sounds like this DLC is probably coming between November to December, but it's a very cool experience getting to jump into a game, not only actually talking to the co-director of the game, but
Wow.
describing what it's like with your personal experiences right after doing them. Like I wasn't filling out an email like I did with Exoprimal. I wasn't filling out this like 4 or 5 page email that may never honestly be read by anything besides a computer,
Yeah.
because it was an email to Capcom. So uh, when it came to Exoprimal, and it was a really cool experience, and actually downloading a downloading a playtest version of a game in which you actually they tell you debug codes and stuff like that to type in order to like god mode and stuff whenever you have to.
Hmm.
It's just a really cool thing to do. If you are not used to doing playtests or really stupid early demos that developers are directly communicating to you, then I really recommend looking up some things. I can put a little. Actually, I was thinking about doing this as a blog, so I might actually just do that. But um, there are a lot of smaller devs that are making some really great games that are looking for different ways to play test games. And like I said, the one that I did today, they sent me a Calendly link so I could put myself on their calendar. They could mention real quick, okay, here's the instructions. You're gonna hop into Discord at this time, and once this happens, we'll record your play session, blah blah blah, and then we'll talk about it. And I spent a solid 15-20 minutes talking about my experience after I played. So it's a really cool thing to do, especially when it's helping out these smaller devs, and especially when it's a great game like the one that I played. It happens to be me. um, like it was fantastic though.
Wait, is
But
it
yeah,
meh or fantastic? What is it?
it was man. That was wow. I just realized that my hands were slightly off the camera. That was my sensor sound was the man.
Oh, that's
It was a
funny.
fantastic game. That I really enjoy. I look forward to getting more of that. Um, but yeah, I think one of these days you're going to have a blog post about getting into playtests and where to go with links and stuff for a few particular developers that I really admire. I think that's going to be a cool thing to get excited about in the future.
Heck yeah. Well, cool. Well, with only two of us, that's really our whole what we've been playing section. So we're gonna take a quick break here in air quotes, while I get everything ready for our party topic here, which really just means me pulling up some videos for us to watch. Um, but we'll jump into that. I mean, we'll keep talking to you guys here, but I'm gonna hit a BRB screen. But we've got lots of stuff to share. We've got games, single player and co-op, and I've got some stuff that you guys, the community, shared on our Discord and Facebook about favorite, favorite spooky memories and games that are on your list and all that stuff. You guys have done a wonderful job of pointing out some of the games that seem like worth playing here this season as we approach, sale season and all that. So um, we'll be right back. Stick around, and we'll have our spoopy party topic here for you.
Woo.
Woo! All right, let me put on some sweet jams. And let's take a little look-see. So doing research for this, I just started off. I said, Google, what are some games like Phasmophobia? And it says, here are 13 games like Phasmophobia. It's like, okay. How about some games like Dead by Daylight? And it says, oh, baby, we got 12 of those. And same thing for Among Us. I was like, wow, they really showed up with these. I did Phasmo last, actually, which was good. Because, like I said before, so many of the games, I'm like, this is the same game. These are all the same game.
Yeah, they really are.
It's funny how one thing inspires another. And you can just see it's like, oh, you clearly played this, and all of you played this, and you just wanted to make a better version, but you really just made the 1.1 version.
I know there were a couple games that I completely forgot. Like the second I looked at Friday the 13th, I was like, I know there's at least 5 more asymmetrical games that are played by a good deal of people. But
yeah, as I started looking around, it was clear that there was going to be too much to go into each one, you know? Because it's like, oh, I forgot about this one. Oh, and this one, and this one. Oh, and they all somehow came out 7 years ago, but they really got big in 2019. What an interesting phenomenon. Also back there, you said don't ever fight the shopkeepers if you have an option. So, the real truth is that when people really get good at the game, killing the shopkeepers is always the best option. Because if you can reliably kill the shopkeepers, which good players can do with their eyes closed.
Wow.
I mean, once you watch people,
Good
you're like,
players can do
whoa.
it.
No, I'm telling you. I told you I watched Giant Bomb play Spelunky for Extra Life a few years ago, and the guy was like, all right, here I go, my first attempt. And he beat the whole entire game on his first attempt. I was like, bro.
See, that's just stupid.
Are you kidding me?
It's like, bro, that doesn't happen.
He was very good. So he gave the advice. He was like, once you're good enough, you should fight the shopkeeper every time. It's like, dang, okay.
But I'm thinking of like Crypt of the Necrodancer, Cadence of Hyrule, which I don't think you can actually beat the shopkeeper in that.
Oh,
but
I see.
He will go aggro and he will fuck your
shit.
shit.
Well, and like the what's it called? It's got the good music. It's like the Mega Man battle system.
Oh, the Children of Eden, or
One Step from Eden.
One Step from Eden. That's right.
I keep seeing that.
Yeah.
And I want to play it again, mostly to listen to the bangers of music.
Really
yeah, dude, I love that so many games have introduced fighting the shopkeeper as an option. You know. You're like, I think I could do it.
Did you ever try to do it in Cadence of Hyrule? Because that boy thick.
I don't think I did.
Yeah, because
what's the shopkeeper even look like? I don't even remember the shopkeeper.
Do you not remember like his operatic?
Yes.
You go into his shop and just the music, he just bellows like 24/7. Yeah, you can trash every one of his shops whenever you get to the shop. But then I forget if you hit him or if you hit a particular part of the shop, because it's literally almost entirely destructible.
Yeah.
At a certain point, he just goes aggro and comes after your ass, and he's got like a massive shield and I think a pike or something, and just starts stabbing the hell out of you.
As you do. Hey, I'm gonna put us back on screen real quick, even though because we're just doing this.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna keep. This will just take me another couple minutes. Yeah, shopkeepers ain't playing around, Go get those noms. Oh man, dude. Earlier today, I looked at my fridge and I said, nah. I don't do DoorDash very often. But today, I was especially not in the middle of the day. Usually we'll do DoorDash at like 9 p.m., But I was like, nah. I need some greasy food stat. And an IV. That's how I felt. So we did.
I needed these chicken flautas.
Chicken pastas? No, what is it though? Obviously that's not what you said, but I don't know what you did say.
A flauta.
A flauta.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a flouter, but you're saying it like
no?
Oh, flauta.
It's like a taquito.
We got a flauta.
Wow.
Oh,
it's like a taquito. It's just not quite as hard, or it's just not as sad as a taquito.
Taquitos aren't sad, but I know what you mean.
If you have a flauta, it's different, and you definitely notice.
You're like, I didn't know a taquito was sad until I had a flauta. That's a happy taquito right there.
100%.
Okay. Yeah, discovered so many dang games doing this. It's fun to call it research. It really was fun to go look all this stuff up. But there's just so many different games. It's like when our community used to be especially active. No spooky backdrops? Not today. I wish Discord for our face cams had a seasonal one. It has like a winter and a summer one, but not even a fall thing, let alone a spooky thing.
Why am I paying for Nitro again? Fuck this Discord.
Ecto, you got the production on your stream. You always got the good startup screens and all that. Do you hope to make a background soon? Well, make it on Microsoft Paint and then say that I did it.
Dude, I have so many Xenoblade location images. Just it's ridiculous. You know, I'll just Photoshop myself next to Queen Nia. That's the thing. Cat girl, baby.
Cat girl. Okay, well, I might keep bringing these up as we go, so we can get started. I'm really excited to play more of that Inside the Backrooms. It's very scary. Oh, you're about to put your security booth up. Yeah, I'm definitely interested in that. Because I knew nothing. Well, I know nothing about that game except your positive feedback on it. When I was going back, I found the Among Us patch trailer from like a year or two ago that introduced the roles that I was talking about. Man, what a fun video. I love Inner Sloth's trailers and all that. Let's see. You got the step. Well, yeah, you nervous to play? I'm kind of nervous too. Imagine Papers, Please, but you're the security dude from Black Mesa. Creepy. So security booth, huh? That's a cool description of that. Okay, well, let's get started. Let's get this music off, and we'll wing it. Vilos, do you want to start with yours first, or do you want me to go first? I could go either way.
Well, I've got this intro thing here, so I'll go ahead and start with that, and then yeah, we'll bounce back and forth if that sounds good to you.
Sounds good to me.
Cool. Yeah. So the big thing is that we've had a spoopy games pod before. We had one last year that was really more of talking about our favorites, but it was way less about educating you guys, our lovely audience, because we do have a lot of new people, and then of course there's plenty of people that don't play the number of games that we do. So really, I wanted to look into the current horror genre, where we're at right now. Felt like diving a little deeper into the topic, because we fucking love horror. Tegan and I are horror fiends.
Yeah.
Definitely as far as movies go, and then secondarily in games. But I mean, there's always a good time to be had. Unlike somebody, I did put this in the doc. Somebody, Sorensen, doesn't do horror, and I am one of those people that, I am one of those people that can't stand that. Like, I have to have that scare every once in a while. You know, it's just one of those emotions you got to get out. You know.
Well, so for me, I mean, you're much more of a movie aficionado, and I don't play as many horror games as I would like. But what I do is I love podcasts. I love horror podcasts because I get to imagine it. You know, myself, based on all these narrations and sounds and music and all this. And so I listen to horror almost every week, just an audio version. And it is absolutely an itch that I have to scratch. When I haven't listened to it in a while, I'm just like, all right, what have I got left? I'll even re-listen to something I've already heard. Like, I need something. And it's not always about being afraid, right? It's not always about a jump scare or even an existential dread, you know. But horror has a certain tension to it, often a suspense that I really like. It's that suspense that keeps me coming back. And so I know in a lot of the games in the single-player games that horror games are famous for, those tend to be truly scarier, I think. I actually think that video games are the scariest medium for horror. I think that they can be too scary, where it's unusual that a movie or an audio something will almost cross the line. But games can put you there because you have agency in it. You have to walk through that door knowing that there's a monster on the other side, you know?
I still dread playing any Outlast game. It's like it's just because it's in first person, and you're like, "Fuck you! I don't want to go in this one little pathway that you're making me go into."
And you can't fight. And in that game specifically, you can only run. So anytime you panic, you can't just mash right trigger to punch him or shoot him, you know? Um, which I like too because where so many games are power fantasies, and especially like American movies, we love a hero story, right? Horror is not that, and especially if you get outside of American horror, you're much more likely to have uh, characters and a storyline where the main character doesn't have a happy ending, which I'm into. I totally understand when people need a happy ending. I get it, but I am not that person. And when horror really takes a turn and it pulls a Ned Stark on you, and you're just like, oh, the limitations that I thought we were working in were false. That sense of the rules have changed, absolutely one of my favorite elements of horror. Just not being able to really get your footing, you know. And even in here, I had mentioned how Phasmophobia is a little tougher for me to be scared by now because I'm so familiar with it, right? Um, these new games, like the one I mentioned, Deadpool and I tried out Inside the Backrooms for about 10 minutes earlier just to make sure it was going to work for the stream. And it seems like a very simple game. It's only $5 and I think it's in early access. But it's that feeling of not having your footing where you're not really sure what is and isn't possible. That's the best, you know. Just not really knowing what powers you do and don't have, and what's safe and what isn't. It's a wonderful, terrible feeling, and you mostly only get that in horror games because they intentionally don't tell you what is going to happen. You know, if they give you a tutorial, there will be like, all right, here's a little bit of information, and expect the unexpected, I guess. You know, so. But that's all very general stuff about horror. Let's talk about specific stuff. Let's talk about what we've got written down here. Um, yeah, I liked when we made this doc because we weren't sure how we were going to structure this, right? And I love seeing how stark our differences are. I was 100% co-op horror, multiplayer, everything. And you started off with, as for the single player side of things, and I was like, yes, the juxtaposition. This is why it's nice to be a
See,
part of the team.
I know how this works.
Yep. So, yeah, if you wanna dive into anywhere here, and we can see where this spooky journey leads us.
Sure. Yeah, so obviously, Tegan has some community stuff that he'll talk about. As for me, the single player side of things, we basically all know that Capcom is almost single handedly keeping the AAA horror game front afloat, with the Resident Evil series that has surprisingly just gotten more popular and more popular. And I do say surprisingly because for a little while there it didn't look like it was going to have this resurgence that it's had since. I don't know whether I'd say it's since Resident Evil 7 or Resident Evil 2 remake, but either way,
Oh, I'd
um,
I'd say 7. I would say horror games were mostly off my radar for at least a couple of years until
mhm,
7 came out, and I was specifically hearing people talk about the VR version, given that both versions of that game seem quality.
mhm.
Hearing people talk about that again, like hearing people discuss how that game made them feel like a game hadn't in years. I was like, we're back, baby. I don't even care about Resident Evil, but we're back. Like this, if that felt like the spark for this resurgence that we've had.
Bro, that game's scary. It's one of those that it does give you the vibes of an Outlast at first, but it also it's so definitively Resident Evil still with the characters, um, and just the like, holy shit, why will none of these characters die?
Yeah,
Situations that it puts you in, it's just a wild ride, and so these with the new additions to the series 7 and 8, and then the remakes of the classics 2 and 3, and now 4 coming. Um, like there's that resurgence in horror, uh, alongside bringing some of the stuff that we knew was scary, 10, 15, 20 years ago, bringing it to the best systems, the much much more realism, and just a better way to go about things than when they were originally released. Dead Space, I still feels like that it holds up, but a remake is more than welcome.
Hmm.
And of course,
Well, of
Callisto
course,
Protocol
yeah,
is a spiritual successor, so it's going to be funny to see how those two differ. But I don't know. I feel like they're gonna feel awfully similar.
yeah,
Um,
for sure. Based on the most recent trailer that we saw, probably 2 or 3 weeks ago,
mhm.
100%. I don't think I'll play that myself because I know that if I picked it up, I wouldn't finish it specifically because of my game habits. But that's going to be a watch on Twitch when it comes out for sure. As Russ here in chat had pointed out, it's a shame that it's coming out in December and not October. But what can you do? I'd rather have the game be finished when it comes out. I just wish that you know the clock was 2 months removed.
Hmm. And I mean, we got the Quarry, like, what was that, June or even earlier than that? And
Hmm.
that didn't make any sense,
Yeah,
being a summer game. But it is what it is. That and the Quarry is still a game that you can definitely play at this time of year.
for sure.
Um, but besides the big AAA stuff, there are a whole lot of indies, and we've played several of those on stream. Um, a lot of great developers are bringing really unique ideas. Uh, like we have the pixel horror, which are games like Lamentum and Carry On, and both of those we've had on stream before. I've played Carry On multiple times. You played Carry On stream.
Very good.
We love that shit, and even though it's reverse horror because you are the monster,
Hmm.
um, it still it still brings all of those same things to play. Like you are escaping from somebody that's oppressing you. You are trying to get out and live, even if you are this heinous, disgusting blob of DNA and guts and all that
Right,
shit.
right.
Um, and then one of my personal favorites, we have some really really good outliers like Inmost that mix genres and tell some really interesting stories. Um, for those of you that aren't familiar with Inmost at all, I do have a video there.
Yeah, I'll get this going up
Um,
here.
Inmost is it was published by Chucklefish, which is one of my favorite publishers, and they helped to develop Wargroove and Eastward more recently. Um, they tell this story of grief and loss with this really somehow just stupidly poetic cinematic pixel art,
Hmm.
and it's just wild that these ideas are happening, and it's a game that gives you legitimate creep vibes. There are moments where you're traversing this giant dark house with a candlelight, basically, lighting your pathway, and every once in a while there will be a flash of lightning, and it'll illuminate this fucking horrifying creature in the darkness out of nowhere, and you're playing this wonderfully emotive little girl at times that's like it reminded me of the little girl in Poltergeist.
Hmm.
um, and it's just bringing so many beautiful scenes in this story of grief and loss, and giving you the translation via the horror vibes. It's super cool. Just a wonderful idea and extremely good execution. I cannot recommend Inmost enough, and I think it's on sale actually right now, like across the board. So check it out. But things like this are coming out and changing how we see horror. There's another game that I've talked about before, Moondown, which is Swedish, or I think
Oh,
it's Swedish.
yeah, I think it's Swedish. I know what you're talking about.
That is a very visually appealing. It's one of those PS1 demake style graphics of a game.
Hmm.
It's this incredibly distinct art style. It's mostly yellow tones and gray tones, and it really is disorienting and uh, immediately gives you a sense of anxiety while you're dealing with this like Wicker Man story.
Yeah.
Uh, that's very cool. Um, and then another one that I've played in the past couple of years, Paratopic, brings a very short experience, like maximum 2 hours, and it brings you the David Lynch style of horror, really existential, really dark, X-Files cultish vibes, just a really good creep factor, and all these things are just completely different. Like you're not going to mix up any of these games with a Resident Evil or a
Oh,
Dead Space or anything like that.
totally. That's
And
so
it's so exciting.
when I started doing this research, like I said, so many of the games, especially with Phasmophobia, you could tell by the very specific aesthetic that people played Phasmophobia, liked it, and wanted to make their own. And so every game looks like Phasmophobia. At a glance, you would just think it was. From everything from carrying the little EMF thing with the 5 colored lights on it, um, to some of the cameras and the way that people are like standing on the other side of of a kitchen table from a spooky ghost. Um, it's funny that those all look the same because, like you had said, there's so many examples of horror games that look nothing like each other. They don't play the same, they don't look the same, they don't sound the same, and they often offer completely unique types of horror. So let's start from the basic. Let me play this trailer of this Phasmo update, the one that's going to hit later this month, um, just so we can dip our toes in here, and then I'll jump into some of these other games. So a reminder: this what you're watching is the new map from Phasmophobia, and I'll let the captions on this trailer explain that to you guys. But the offshoots I've got, there is a game called Pacify that looks, in a similar aesthetic, but it's actually mission based. There are 3 different missions in 3 different environments. It's purely co-op against the ghost. I mentioned the 3 games that I really looked into were Phasmophobia, Dead by Daylight, and Among Us. They each have their own things that make them unique, but the thing that really ties them together is that you've got at least one squad of people working together against, some killer. In Dead by Daylight and Among Us, the killer is the people, but in Phasmophobia, the killer is a ghost. So in this Pacify game, it's only co-op. You're trying to solve. It's not like you're a detective. It's almost more like an escape room where you're finding different tools and they do something, but you just have to figure out what it is. But while you're trying to solve this, I guess, mystery, this puzzle really is more like it. The ghost is still trying to kill you, so you have to find different tools and things that will pacify the ghost because the ghost will chase you, but it doesn't seem like you'll always get killed by it. But it's tricky. So each of these games, that's Pacify. Another one is Ghost Hunter Core, which is so tough to pin down that YouTube doesn't even have an official trailer for it. It's just a funny thing. A couple of these games, they're about 5 or 6 years old, and they used to be distributed on the Discord game store when that existed. So yeah, I mean, diving down this rabbit hole is interesting because, the one podcast I listen to the most regularly is the No Sleep podcast, and that is based off of the No Sleep Reddit, which was a place where creepypastas, which are old internet stories that are often told from a perspective where you aren't sure if it's fictional or a first-hand account, and it's intended to be like that. Creepypastas used to exist in the dark reaches of the internet. Like, yeah, eventually you could find them on Reddit, but they used to exist on like 4chan and places like that. And though, like there are lots of famous creepypastas. If I pointed at certain types of horror games, I could tell you where those creepypastas came from or which ones inspired what. Um, but in fact, the game we're playing later, Inside the Back Rooms, is based off of a very old type of creepypasta where you're basically stuck in a sort of maze, um, and you're not sure what else is in the maze, right? You're in an environment that just doesn't make sense, like the way that Superliminal doesn't make sense. Um, that's what that whole vibe is. Like you're trapped in a place that looks familiar, but it's completely wrong, and there's something in there with you. So these kind of approach that. Um, not quite like Inside the Backrooms does, but I just like digging down this hole because the games are as difficult to find as those old creepy pastas. Like it felt like I was in weird parts of the internet just trying to do research for these games. So that was its own joy. But Ghost Hunter Core is a game that's just like Phasmophobia. It looks a little different. It seems a little more well developed because I think it has a slightly bigger team. Phasmophobia is made essentially by one person, still even after its commercial success. But the last one I have here, I've actually got a video for, and I think this is one we're going to try to play. Again, very similar to Phasmophobia. This game is Devour. Um, oh, that thing's creepy. You've got one specific monster that is trying to chase you in this house, and you have to work together to, to stop it. This one is interesting. It's different from some of the other games. Phasmophobia, when you get attacked, you die. Like if you get attacked by the ghost, you die in one hit. You're dead. But this game, you can clearly be knocked down and revived, like a lot of multiplayer games.
Okay, how tiny is the goat that they're sacrificing, though?
It's
Did
a
you see
itty
that?
bitty.
It's like-
It's a little baby goat.
the
Yeah,
demon
like
looks like
they just let
the
more
one
about
in
it.
Ikai.
It looks like what?
It looks like the demon in Akai, the game that Demo Duo played a few weeks back.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the classic The Ring style woman ghost thing.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, because that character is that's spooky. That character is in Dead by Daylight as well. Um, yeah, so I mean, there's lots of cool stuff there. So that's Devour. I think we are going to end up playing that, but that one's interesting because you have more tools to actually confront the ghost. Phasmophobia, all you do is identify and survive, and you try to gather evidence, right? You try to get a picture of it and all that. But this is a little more hands-on, which I appreciate, because it goes further from the Outlast untouchable enemy, and gives you a little more agency. You can't kill it, but you do have things that you can use to slow it down. Let's see. Hot Rod says, in Ghost Hunter, you were also removing the ghosts, not only discovering. Yeah. So you're actually taking an action to complete an objective, not just to show up. Oh my gosh, Odysseus shared in Discord a screenshot of a ghost from Phasmophobia, and its name was Thomas Thomas. So if you're trying to get the ghost's attention, you just be like Thomas 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 Thomas, which is silly, but it goes with the vibe of like ghost hunters, you know. But that's all. I mean, I can continue on to one of the other games, but if you wanna jump in at any time, Vilos, you don't let me stop you.
Yeah, I mean the next series is really the one that I feel like I've watched the most of really these asymmetrical multiplayer games.
Yeah. So I would say so. Dead by Daylight is the culprit here. That really inspired a lot of other things. Dead by Daylight got famous in about 2019, ballpark. It's iffy, but the game came out in 2017, and you look at a lot of other games on this list. We've got the Friday the 13th game, Evil Dead. There's a Predator game, and a handful of others. They've had varying degrees of success, and they're different types of games too. But Dead by Daylight really set the precedent to say, first, we really want to do this one versus many vibe, right? Where like Evolve, the game where you fought a big beast. That was in, I don't know, that could have been 10 years ago.
I'm pretty sure that was 2014.
Okay, that sounds right. That came out and it didn't work out for a bunch of reasons, but that wasn't a horror game anyway. But I think it introduced people to the idea of, one versus many. But that game didn't work out. Dead by Daylight comes along about 3 years later, and it starts off with a relatively small amount of content, but they did what a lot of people in horror have learned to do. They collaborated. So instead of trying to do all of these, paying homage, is it actually homage? I never know if it's silent H like herb or herb, um, paying
Homage.
homage. Yeah, because I've straight up heard it both ways. And I don't know what's it. So it is homage.
Yeah.
I swear I hear it
I
both
mean,
ways.
no, you can say it as it's an homage to something, or you're paying homage. Like some people change the pronunciation
Okay, well, homage
on
is
usage.
it
Yeah.
sounds right. So we'll go with homage. Instead of paying homage to those other franchises, they reached out directly. They said, "Hey, we want your character in our game. We'll put a killer in there, and we'll put a hero from that same IP." So, they put Pyramid Head in from. Of course, this was years after release. They put Pyramid Head in, and then they put the protagonist from Silent Hill as a survivor, because it's a four-player, a 4 versus 1 game. Anamananagia, Onomatopoeia. And they just kept doing that. I mean, there's a huge list of from Saw to Texas Chainsaw Massacre. They have a bunch of original ones peppered throughout that. But they just really broke ground on bringing that 4v1, that asymmetrical multiplayer, like you said, to the forefront. But also the idea of boldly bringing other IPs into your game, right? Or just making a game from an IP that doesn't suck. Because 10 years ago, IPs for any game were bad. There was a Star Trek game that came out ages ago, bad. There was a James Cameron Avatar game that came out ages ago, bad. There were so many times where a movie to game opportunity was the worst it could be. Just a money grab and it was a failure. But after Dead by Daylight, like I said, you've got stuff like Evil Dead. Let's put on this fun trailer here. Let's see. This trailer is actually from just a few months ago. Because the game is out now. It was announced, I think, 2 years ago, maybe at E3, something like that. But you can see very similar vibes in the gameplay to Dead by Daylight. But it has these very unique, very Evil Dead aspects to it that you don't see in other games, right? And it really makes it feel like this. The people who made this really loved Evil Dead. They weren't just coming in, cashing in on an IP, and so I haven't played this. I'm still not sure if I will. But if you're somebody who likes playing or watching Dead by Daylight, I've heard good things. Our resident DBDer is Bats, Straying Bats. You can find her on Twitch and all the socials and all that. But she's always playing. She's been playing Dead by Daylight for like 3 years straight. I'll drop a link here in chat to her channel, but you should absolutely follow her. She's got good content and is very knowledgeable about games in the Dead by Daylight sphere, right? But I think she played Evil Dead and said had good things to say about it, which was encouraging, So Evil Dead's one of our games. It's a little sillier, right? Like just like Evil Dead, it has very genuinely creepy horror, but then also very silly, on the nose, like self-referential jokes. The skeletons twisting their heads and putting them back on and all that. So yeah, if you like that IP, it absolutely seems worth checking out. We've got the Friday the 13th one. We'll go right here. This was one of the earliest ones. Let's see. Actually, Vilos, is it Straying Bat or Straying Bats?
Straying Bat. I got a link here.
Boom. Thank you very much.
Bats. Bats is the official name, and then they go by Straying Bat on Twitch. Yeah.
Indeed. So Friday the 13th, this trailer we're watching is from 2017. So this was the closest to Dead by Daylight's official release as far as anything on our list goes. And when this came out, it was actually a competitor for Dead by Daylight. You could argue that all of these are competitors for Dead by Daylight, but Dead by Daylight hadn't had critical success yet, right? It hadn't hit critical mass. So this game came out, and it seems like the game is better based on feedback and updates to the game since, almost 5 years since release. Yeah, 4 or 5 years, essentially. So it seems worth playing now, but when it first came out, everybody was unsure. There were a lot of horror aficionados who checked it out, but it hadn't, it hadn't hit critical success yet. And this certainly hasn't seen the success that Dead by Daylight has by a long shot. But it's your classic Jason Voorhees story, right? You actually get the chance to play a famous, terrible villain. Like, not just a random killer, a faceless, nameless killer specific to whatever game you're playing. You get to live Friday the 13th. So this game, I think I've got it written down here that it is a 7 versus 1 game. You've got Jason versus all the counselors. 7 people on a team? That's a lot of people. That's a lot of people. Let's see, Russ says it was also super glitchy at launch. Heck of a time playing multiplayer with friends.
Yep. But it was really funny glitchy, though.
Yeah.
For the most part.
So, yeah, I mean, I remember I had a friend who doesn't game very much who played this, and he loved it. And I just thought that was funny because, like, he was seeing it through the lens of loving cult horror films and classic horror films. So, like, a lot of the glitches, he didn't even think to bring it up. Like, when I asked him about it, he was like, oh, yeah, it's no big deal. And I was like, you know what? That's what the appeal is of stuff like this, that it gets people who just love this IP, and they get to come in and have a great time, They don't have to think too much about it, and they don't have to. It doesn't have to be a perfect game for people to have a good time with it. So, it was nice that something like that exists. Let me read the thing off the Steam synopsis here. This says, how will you survive? The entire focus of Friday the 13th is multiplayer. Survival is entirely up to you. You can either stealthily hide from Jason or work together as a team to escape or bring the fight to Jason. So instead of, like in Dead by Daylight, the 4 of you work together to turn on generators to open a portal to exit. There's a lot more to it than that, but essentially that is the basic objective, is always to escape. That's, there are things, there's more to it, but essentially you just want to escape. Friday the 13th, like this says, you can fight him, escape, or just hide. So it says, play as a counselor. Playing as a counselor is all about risk and reward, giving players multiple means of triumph over Jason. Want to hide in the woods as you wait for the police? Perhaps you want to band together and try to take on Jason as a group. Or maybe you and a friend decide to fix the boat on the lake and escape while leaving everyone else to their fate. There are endless opportunities to survive the night, but every choice has a consequence. So that idea, too, where it's not all about everyone surviving, if you're role-playing it, it would make sense that you might want to just dip and say, sorry, guys, I run faster than you, so I escape,
But then that's the funny part is that there's like a meta to it. So I don't think that Dead by Daylight's bad guy is quite as effective as Jason is in this game, because his warping ability is just out of this world. Like, you literally can zoom almost anywhere that you'd like. And so if there is that one person that decides, I'm just going to run like hell and get past the bridge and be gone, like, they're almost always the target first. And
Yep.
everybody else is like, well, they said fuck them, and you know what, we're going to save. And it's like, let's go get the car instead, and we'll all work together to get the damn battery in there so we can run out. But like, it really turns itself into the movies, and that's the funniest thing about it.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you know the team that you're with really well, like, there's always going to be the people that are even unintentionally playing their movie role.
Right. So even though everybody's on the same team, it almost is like you have like an imposter, like in Among Us, right? um, the idea that you're basically telling your own story. Like anytime you boot up the game with 7 of you, it's like what I always say with roguelikes and battle royales. It's like you generally know the setting, you generally know the key characters, but every time you're writing a new story, like things are not the same. The human element means that you know it may seem familiar, but it's never identical. It's always very unique to the moment by moment, and it's like you get to star in your own Friday the 13th movie. So I hope that game's the best that it's been. I mean, I haven't heard about it in a while, but the last I did hear, it was generally positive. I can tell you that reviews online are definitely more positive now than when the game first came out. Uh, but yeah, I'm just excited that has had a little bit of staying power, whatever that is. But that has given a lot of people who don't really play games an opportunity to enjoy something like this. Uh, Dead by Daylight, I think, is also very accessible, but it's a different type of accessible. Um, but yeah, I just think there's really cool stuff here to enjoy. So that's Friday the 13th, Evil Dead. The Predator one, I'll get that on screen for just a minute. But the interesting thing about this, it is a 1v4 game. So of course you got the Predator versus 4 Marines, classic. Just like the original Predator movie. But this one is way less about spooks and stealth and a lot more about just a head-on fight. And I like this trailer because it makes it look like the Predator is a complete idiot. Like because you see the Marines or the soldiers looking up at the Predator who's just walking around up in the air. And it's like, bro, Predator, you've got invisibility. You got to use it, man. Use your active camo.
The predators are literally never unprepared. Like the
Right.
only time they're unprepared is when they like get shafted by an ambush, and that still never happens.
Still,
Like, come
and
on.
they still take out half the squad during the ambush. Um, yeah, so you see in here, you've got these heavily armed soldiers and then the Predator walking around in the tree and stuff. Um, this game definitely had like mixed reception. I could imagine having fun with a squad playing this, but it seems limiting enough that once you played it, you'd know exactly what was and wasn't possible. Um, the pathing of the Predator up in the trees almost reminds me of Left 4 Dead. If you ever played as the zombies, whatever they were called in that game, um, where it's like, yeah, you can go just about anywhere, but once you like try to climb kind of outside of where the human players can go, it's very limited. Like you've basically got a little tightrope that you can walk on. But yeah, I mean, this is just another opportunity to live out your fantasy of playing somebody from a famous action movie. Um, so yeah, there's some stealth, but it's mostly action.
I mean, you get to first person direct your chakram around, so that's kind of fucking
That was
cool.
that was pretty cool. That reminds me of in Heavenly Sword when you use the 6-axis on the PS3 controller to like aim your arrow or your cannonball or whatever. Um, Nifty, but that one, like, of all the ones on the list so far for Dead by Daylight, that's definitely the one that I'm like the most skeptical of. I'm like, is this just a cash grab or is this gonna get the development it needs to become something real? I'm less optimistic about this getting more development, but who knows? That trailer we just watched is from 2020, so I'd have to go check in where that is. But that's playable. 5 people can play, 4 versus 1. Um, the other ones, there's game Secret Neighbor, which is a variation of Hello Neighbor. It's a multiplayer version. Vilas, you might know more about that than I did. I did see it on the lists, but I didn't. I didn't write it down.
Yeah, I don't know a whole lot about it. I just know that it is exactly what you would think it is. Somebody is playing as the neighbor that's hunting all the children that have to hide and do whatever to stay safe. Um, that one is one that I could probably say is definitely a legitimate cash grab
Yeah,
because they somehow made this into a horror franchise. But I mean, at the end of the day, I don't think it's necessarily scary, but it is one of those games that with like Five Nights at Freddy's and the power of YouTube, like the game theory uh, kind of brought the lore together to make this weird little community of its own for the
Mhm.
Neighbor series. And that's really how I know of it, because I do love watching some of the game theory stuff just because it's so lore heavy, and it's like, how much of this stuff is in the games?
Right, and how much
um,
is just the community making stuff up?
yeah, it all becomes headcanon at some point, but it's really fun to see how all these horror elements are bringing people together. It's really surprising with some of these titles.
Yeah, when I saw Secret Neighbor and it had the same exact picture as Hello Neighbor, I was like, is this a clone? I genuinely thought it was just a clone after all the clones that I saw um, for some of these. I tell you what, the last one that I have for Dead by Daylight that straight up is a clone, but I wanted to show it to you, is Identity V, which I assume means 5, but I'm not sure, so I'm going to read it how it's written. Um, let's see. Check this game out. This is a game available on PC and mobile. This is straight up just Dead by Daylight. It's the same thing, just with like a little cartoony Tim Burton-y aspect to it, but the same game. Like, look out! Look, it has the killer has the red light in front of him, just like Dead
I
by
was
Daylight.
about to say, it's like they used the same models and then just covered them up with some bullshit, like
Totally. So
all the textures even.
yeah, top to bottom, it's just the same game. It just looks like a reskin. Like, it looks like a mod. So I got a kick out of that. That is a freemium game on mobile, and I see that and I'm just like, how, like you'd mentioned, it's like, how are they not in a lawsuit with them? Because that's, it's one thing to have licenses with all these IPs. I mean, I guess they don't have like Jigsaw in there and stuff, but uh, it just cracked me up. I guess if you want to go play a free version of Dead by Daylight on your phone, there you go. But yeah, that's Identity 5, I guess. Um, it's just the same thing. Anything I'd read in the synopsis is anything we just talked about in Dead by Daylight. But that cracked me up. But yeah, so many genuine clones during this research. I'm just like, well, people see something good, and they just want to make that again, you know. But yeah, there's other stuff like Dead by Daylight. VHS is a game that I think is still in either beta or early access. It's very similar to Dead by Daylight, but different enough. It's got more abilities to attack the different killers. You're basically stuck in a high school in VHS. I forget how like an actual VHS plays into it. Of course, there are plenty of movies from the VHS series to The Ring that have to do with like a haunted VHS tape. So that's kind of what that's pulling from. I think the idea in this one is like you watched a movie about like a werewolf, and now you're stuck in the movie, right? You're stuck in a high school where a werewolf is hunting you. That's the general vibe of the lore. But that one was cool. That came out all of a sudden, and it's very similar, 4v1, but a lot more agency for you to be able to like attack and not just hide from the killer. I'm pretty sure you can't kill the villains in VHS. I could be wrong about that, but there is a lot more offense that you can take, which I certainly appreciate.
Yeah, and the little stuff that I've seen of it, I'm not sure that you have legitimate weapons, but really good distractions and stuff. But the cool thing about it is it gives you more of a Stranger Things sort of vibe, because it is set in the 80s, and
Mm-hmm.
that's the whole aesthetic on that. So that does have that little bit of a gotcha thing in there to reel you in, and it's actually free on the Epic Store. So I don't know if it's free everywhere. It's an early access though.
Oh hell yeah.
So that actually that might have to happen next month.
Yeah. I mean, I would say of all of the ones that I would be likely to actually play that we've talked about, it would be either Evil Dead, but more likely VHS.
Hmm.
I watched a streamer on my feed play probably like 5 or 6 hours of that over a few sessions, and it seems cool. I will say, so the next game that we have is Among Us, which of course is a social deceit game. This is where you start losing friends while playing a game. This is like the modern version of Mario Party, where, or even Mario Kart, where once you go in, you gotta understand what everybody's in it for, right? Are you in it to win? Are you in it to just goof around and play? because it's very easy to hurt your friends' feelings when you're intentionally lying to them, right? And everybody, like, some people are playing a little harder than others. So I want to say that one of the common threads, I looked at a whole bunch of reviews for a bunch of these games. Um, a lot of them have mixed reviews. Some of them have very positive reviews, and those really stand out. Like Devour had very positive reviews. Um, Evil Dead had positive reviews. VHS has positive reviews. Yeah, but the one thing that so many people said on all of these things was you have to play with friends. If you are going online to play with strangers, you're going to have a bad time. You will find review after review after review that say, I got into a lobby with strangers and they did this and this and this and this, and all the things that people, terrible things that people do when they're in lobbies with strangers. That could be griefing, that could be straight up just cheating, just saying, I'm an imposter and so is this person. It's like, oh man, what? Don't, no, stop it. Like, that, you just told them the truth. At least make it a lie. Like, make them have to work for it. Or other just nasty things. So a lot of the time, the issue with the games is either that or some sort of lack, excuse me, some sort of lack of content updates because they're often made by such small teams. So with any of those games we've mentioned or the ones we're about to talk about with Among Us, I very, very highly recommend that you play it with your own group of friends. If you need a group of friends, we got one right here for you. So if you only got just you, or maybe you and one friend, we would love to fill out your party. But I seriously don't recommend playing any of these games with strangers. The internet will tell you that is a bad idea. So let's jump into that with the understanding that these are meant to be played with people who care about each other's feelings. All right. Otherwise, the whole thing falls apart, and it doesn't matter what the quality of the game is. You're gonna be angry. Okay.
Although I will say, if you just randomly get like on, specifically my examples on Switch, if you just get on Among Us on Switch, just don't say shit. You don't even have to plug in a mic. Just don't say anything. You just play the game. Doesn't matter if you're imposter or not. It's gonna be a really funny time because everybody else is gonna be on mic and getting really pissed off
So what's this
that
guy
you're.
doing?
Yeah, and then you'll there is a way to you can still text chat or whatever, but like I don't technically condone griefing, but there is a way of not necessarily griefing, but just playing the game in a very fun meta way through simple text or simple lack of any kind of communication
Just going into the
in Among
lobby
Us.
and just saying red,
Yes,
and
you can
everybody's like,
make
"What?
such a
It was
you can
red."
make such a your own game out of it that it's impossible to not have fun with it most of the time. Like unless there's somebody that actually, you will occasionally find somebody that's just like starts spouting, racism and all the shit that comes out of their mouth. But
Right.
most of the time, it's still pretty easy to have fun specifically in Among Us.
For sure. So I'm gonna play this trailer from about a year ago that I just think is too funny. It was their update. It was Intersloth's update for when they introduced roles, which I mentioned earlier. So while we're chatting, watch this, and I hope you laugh at it. Of course, the sound is good, but you don't really need the sound to understand what's going on. They just got such a goofy sense of humor in this game, and the trailer really does justice to that. Um, so Among Us, of course, for the uninitiated, is a social deduction game. You've got a bunch of crewmates playing together. The game is best when you have 7 or more players, and you have one or more imposters. The imposters look just like everybody else. They are the only ones who know who the imposters are. So if there are 2 imposters, they can see that each other are the killers, but no one else can. The crewmates, the innocent ones, they are trying to complete little minigame tasks of all different shapes and sizes to win the game. If they complete all their tasks, even after they die, because their ghost can still complete tasks, if they complete all those tasks, the crewmates win. That's the end of the game. But the imposter can do all sorts of things to stop that from happening. So obviously, the imposter can murder people in all sorts of different ways. They can also sabotage the spaceship or whatever level they're on to maybe turn the lights off. So you can murder somebody in the dark, and then when the lights come back on, you're somewhere different, and you're like, "Oh, it wasn't me. I was over here." Or you can take a more active approach, and if you're in voice chat or even text chat, once somebody discovers the body and calls an emergency meeting, you can immediately go in and say, "Oh, it was this person," and cast suspicion, cast sus on someone else. So, social deduction game, right? You are intended to lie to trick people into voting off, either the correct people or the incorrect people based on, if you're the imposter or not. So there's lots of fun to have there. We played a bunch of this over 2 different holiday seasons, especially in 2020. So we've loved that. If we get enough people, we've talked about playing again, but we definitely need, a solid squad. The game supports up to 15 people now. It's got plenty of levels, lots of fun vanity items. And then there are mods for it, but I personally don't really subscribe to those. But the roles, like I said earlier, allow you. There are additional roles, kind of like the board game Werewolf that this is based off of, that allow you to do certain things. So there is a guardian angel role. That one of the crewmates, one of the innocent people, can be a guardian angel, and they can basically give somebody an invulnerability bubble. And if a killer tries to kill them in the next 10 seconds or something, it will prevent that from happening, and it will alert the guardian so they can go, "Oh, I gotta go press the button. Somebody just tried to murder my friend. It was Vilos." And then suddenly Vilos is like, "Oh, geez, I gotta come up with something quick." I gotta cast blame somewhere else or defend myself.
Throw Tegan under the bus every time.
That happened a lot. When in doubt, Tegan out. That was the motto for a while there. But an absolute blast. So Among Us came out in 2020, mid to late 2020, right at the perfect time for the pandemic. It might have. I should look up the release date. It might have been in the middle of the year. But for so many people who were stuck at home, who just couldn't go out to see people for all sorts of reasons, this was a wonderful way to get a ton of people in the same room just laughing together.
Just a reminder, it got popular then. It came out in 2018.
Oh, that's true. I completely forgot about that. So so the release date is almost irrelevant to 2020. It just blew up. One of the people in our community, he used to play when there were only a few hundred people playing that game when it first came out. So when it blew up in 2020, he's just like, "What? You all just heard of this?" Kind of like Dead by Daylight blew up, and a lot of people were like, "Yo, I've been playing this for literal years, multiple years." But yeah, lots of fun. Man, this trailer is really silly. Oh, look, you can see right now, you can see the Guardian Angel at work, that role that they introduced in this update. So anyway, Among Us, such a good time. And when this came out, just like Dead by Daylight, just like Phasmophobia, a lot of people, creators and players, wanted to have more of that. They saw something they wanted, and they wanted to find other ways to enjoy that same feeling. So I've really got 2 games to look at here. I've got one. They've both got positive reviews generally. The first one we'll look at is called Dread Hunger. This was a little more popular than the other one that I'll mention, which is Deceit. Show you a trailer for that in a minute. But this is Dread Hunger. The whole point of this is you've got a bunch of crewmates, I think 6 people, I want to say, on a ship. They've got a ship together, and this is more of a survival game than most other games like it. Like Among Us is not a survival game, but in this game, you've got your ship stuck in the Arctic. So you have to worry about getting enough food, getting enough heat. When you venture out of your pirate ship, because essentially there's an open world that you're in that has this giant area, including the ship, you go mine for coal or you go hunting. But when you do that, there are also packs of wolves. So there's a chance that they will show up and they'll just kill somebody. And that's just the AI. you do all of this, but then you add the fun imposter element where one or two people are killers. And I think in this game that you do know who the other killer is, but I'm not positive. Um, but you have blood magic and all of these things that you do to keep yourself alive as the killer, while trying to, you know, keep people from figuring out that it's you. So if you're attacked by a pack of wolves, for example, um, you know, the whole team might not be there. The team might have split up because you needed two different types of resources. So, let's split up, gang. Some of you went left and some of you went right. So maybe I disappear with Vilos over to go, mine some coal, and some wolves attack. And, well, the wolves showed up, and maybe, our friends heard gunfire, but they didn't know that I shot Vilos in the back, and let the wolves have him so I could escape unharmed. So I show back up at the ship, and I'm like, oh man, sorry guys, the wolves they were too much for us.
Clearly.
Clearly. So there's this element of survival to it that means it's a lot easier for you to get away with murder because the environment will do the murdering for you. Even if everything goes right, you could die to those wolves, right? You could just die to the cold. So I really like that element, especially as someone who enjoys survival games. I have not played this game. I've only watched a couple hours of it on stream. But this one very much interests me. The issue is it has mixed reviews on content. It was funny reading through Steam reviews on this one because you'd see a negative review and somebody would say, yeah, this game's fun, but it has no content. And the person has played for 350 hours. Bro. I saw...
I mean, it's had 5 updates. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of game to be had.
Yeah. So it's tough for me to see somebody put so many hours and be like, there's nothing to play here. What do you mean there's nothing to play? You fool. But this one, more than many other games, this specifically said you have to play this game with your friends. If you play this in a stranger's lobby, there's no... Friendly fire is always on. And so people will just kill each other because... and then laugh. Just story after story of tragedy in the Steam reviews. Honestly, if you want to kind of laugh at some reviews, there's some pretty good ones in there. But that's Dread Hunger. Can I figure out? Dread Hunger is an 8-player game. Okay, so 8 people can play that. So that's a pretty good size.
Yeah, 6 regular explorers, 2 traders.
Yeah. And I know that game's under $20. I could get the number here in a minute, but it's not expensive. And if that was something that we got the community together for, we could play. But you know how it is. That's another recommendation. So again, it seems generally positive, but you have to play with your friends or some sort of community. You don't want to play with strangers. Got hammered into my head with those reviews. Holy cow. So the other one we have here is Deceit. This is the last one that I've got lined up for y'all. It's a short little trailer. What I will say is we're going to watch the trailer for Deceit 1, which is the only one out right now. This came out, this trailer and this game were released in 2017. It is just like this trailer shows. You've got 6 humans. 4 or 5 of them, I believe, are innocent, and 1 or 2 of them are killers. And you're running around this area, and there are these blood bags all over the place. And if you're infected, you need to collect those blood bags to fill up a bar. Well, what's going to happen is eventually the lights will go out. And when the lights go out, an infected person with a full bar can transform into this terrible monster. And that allows them to move very quickly. They can see in the dark. They can do all sorts of stuff, climb through vents and all this, until the innocent people get the lights back on. So, it seems pretty nifty and genuinely spooky the way that the movement works and how quickly the innocent people can get snuck up on. There are all sorts of ways to get items like a shotgun, which has very obvious use, or a scanner that you point at someone and it tells you if they're infected or not. But as far as I can tell, I think that scanner is only visible to the player who's holding it. So you could, as an infected person, aim it at somebody and be like, "Oh, they're infected," and their friends be like, Really? Let me see," and you'd be like, "No, I don't trust that you won't lie if you're holding it."
I'm holding the scanner.
Right. There's only
I
one.
can't drop it. What are you
Don't
talking
don't
about?
look. Like anytime somebody gets near you, like cover it up so they can see. So yeah, interesting stuff there. But mixed reviews, same thing. Only play with your friends. That's all plastered on every single review on Steam. But when I went looking this one up, it looks like Deceit 2 is slated for release later this year, or so in late 2022, and we are approaching late 2022. So, who knows if that date will hold? But I am definitely interested. They on their website made it seem like they learned a lot from the first game, which of course you'd say, But I'm optimistic about this. I think when you have a game like this that tries new things, because like the blood packs I mentioned earlier, that's that's a way that you can identify who is infected, because you can be like, I'm in a room with this other person and the blood bags keep disappearing, so I'm pretty sure it's this person, and you can just kill them. You don't have to like call a meeting, like in Among Us. You can just stab them if you want. And what I thought was interesting in one of the trailers was, if you want to like formally kick someone out, because once someone goes down, they're revivable. I'm not sure at what point they die from the monster, but if they go down, the way that people vote them out to say, I officially declare that this person needs to die, you have to attack them. So if they're like lying on the ground writhing because someone just shot them, you have to run up and stab them, and then a box above them checks and it says you voted to eliminate them or whatever. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's such a brutal way to cast your vote, but it checks out with the genre. I think it's very effective.
Et tu, Brute? No.
Right. So yeah, Deceit 2 will be on its way at the end of the year. I think it's going to hit early access before the 1.0 release comes out, but I'm interested in that. Pretty much every game that we've talked about is at most $20. I don't think there's a single game, and Dead by Daylight goes on sale constantly, so you could find that for under $20, because I think by default it might be 30 or 40. Don't quote me on that one. That's conjecture or speculation, I guess. But yeah, lots of stuff to play, and this is only all of this co-op horror is only a small slice of what there is to play out there. Even of co-op horror, there's all sorts of other stuff that you could play. I mean, Back 4 Blood, I guess technically is a horror game. It's not really scary, but it's zombies and blood and action stuff. It's like a cult zombie movie. But there are just so very many things to play. But like I said, it was fun to research this because I really felt like I was like lifting up the rug to see what was underneath it. Like I was just looking in places I'm not used to uncover information about these hard to find, very, very indie titles.